Welcome to the second webinar of the CTE Data Reporting webinar series, CTE Data Reporting Requirements for 2018-19. I'm Maitra Attell, CTE Data Consultant with the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction. This webinar is designed to help you understand the required CTE data elements starting with this school year's reporting. In today's webinar, we will go over how CTE data reporting relates to New College and Career Readiness, or CCR, review the data elements that are required for CTE data reporting, and go over CTE data elements that no longer need to be submitted. Many of you may have heard about Act 59's new CCR reporting requirements starting this school year. As a result of the Act, DPI plans to collect student participation or completion of dual enrollment, youth apprenticeship, industry-recognized credentials, and AP courses, along with other data elements that will be used to capture CCR data. All public school districts are required to report CCR data for students in grades 9 through 12. You may already have noticed that many of the CCR reporting requirements also satisfy CTE data reporting. Let's take a look to see how these two data reporting requirements relate to one another. From a bird's eye view, these are the data that will need to be reported and collected for CCR requirements. The data elements in the far left circle are the data elements that are required for reporting from districts that receive Carl Perkins funding. The center intersection outlines the shared data elements that satisfy both reporting requirements. For the purposes of this webinar, we will focus on the CTE Data Elements reporting. Please be aware, however, that it is important to familiarize yourself with new CCR reporting requirements and how they relate to CTE. It is also important that districts assemble a roster team with an identified lead to learn how to collect and enter CTE and CCR data into your student information system. This should include district staff members who are charged with entering and submitting data and any other staff who serve as CTE content experts for the district. Before we get into student-level data elements required for CTE reporting, let's first talk about courses or course offerings. Courses are an integral part of the CTE data integration project because they serve as the starting point for collecting all other CTE data. For the very first time, DPI will flag CTE courses in 2018-19 using the latest SCED 5 version. This means that districts will use the latest course codes and descriptions to identify their CTE course offerings through roster. Before you identify a course as CTE, you will need to make sure the course is taught by a licensed CTE educator within the specific discipline, as this determines whether or not the course is CTE. Of course, health science education continues to be an exception, as there is no CTE health science education license. As such, health science education courses may be taught by a health education instructor, a licensed science instructor, or a family and consumer science teacher. Districts should submit course offerings through roster at or near the beginning of the school year. Now let's dive into the student-level data elements that are required for CTE data reporting, as shown here. Districts will continue to report the single-parent characteristic for all students in grades 11 and 12. Next, districts will continue to report CTE concentrators for students in grades 11 and 12. A student is identified as a concentrator if he or she completed a minimum of 2 CTE courses within a chosen pathway and is enrolled in a continuing CTE course in that pathway for the reporting year, Or a concentrator may also be a student who has completed 3 CTE courses or more within a chosen pathway and is not enrolled in any CTE courses in the reporting year. Districts will continue to report a single IEC code, otherwise known as zip codes, for each CTE concentrator identified. The code should be based on the focus of the student's planned sequence of CTE courses that lead to skills for employment after graduation or to the continuation of studies in higher education. Districts will continue to report program areas for students in grades 11 and 12. However, beginning in 2018-19, this will be required only for CTE concentrators, not CTE participants as previously reported. New to CTE data reporting is a single career cluster that will need to be submitted for each CTE concentrator. Under the resource section of the CTE data webpage is a link to a document that maps IEC codes to their career clusters. It is important that districts properly identify the IEC code and ensure that the corresponding career cluster accurately reflects the area reported for the CTE concentrator. Districts will need to report each concentrator participation in non-certified career education programs, previously referred to as non-certificated learning methodologies and C-tiers. But if you are reporting student participation in a local co-op, it must be reported by all public school districts for students in grades 9 through 12 because it is also required for CCR. This leads us to other data elements that satisfy both CTE and CCR requirements. Starting 2018-19, all public school districts will need to report student participation in any of the certified career education programs listed here. This data will fulfill CCR reporting requirements and, as a result, will satisfy CTE data reporting requirements at the same time. So what's new this year? Districts must report a certified program status type for students in grades 9 through 12 who have participated in a certified career education program in the reporting year. Many of you familiar with C-tiers may know this as the Certificated Learning Completion Status in C-tiers. Similarly, this data element fulfills CCR reporting requirements and will also satisfy CTE data reporting. Finally, one of the newest reporting requirement changes that applies to both CCR and CTE data reporting are grades. Beginning in 2018-19, all public school districts will need to submit a grade performance type for students in grades 9 through 12. These include pass, fail, not completed, or not graded. Districts will have the option to submit a letter grade along with the performance type. However, this data element is not required. This completes a review of the data elements required for CTE data reporting and their relation to CCR requirements. But you may have noticed that CTE participant and completion status were not included in the required data elements. Starting in 2018-19, your district will no longer need to report CTE participants because the system will do so automatically. DPI has put in place business rules to identify these students based on the courses you flag as CTE and the students enrolled in the course. Your district will have an opportunity to review your CTE participants in the WISE data portal. In addition, your district will no longer have to report a completion status. Many of you may have recalled entering a completion status for each 11th and 12th grade student. Now that CTE data is integrated into WISE data, DPI will be able to identify the completion status of each student by the end of the reporting year. The status is no longer required for you to submit. This concludes today's webinar on the data elements that are required for reporting beginning school year 2018-19. Thank you, and we hope you can join us in our next webinar.